myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is Those Were the Days. And if you've managed to recover from the most depressing episode that we had to put on last time, 1960-61. Well done. We're now into 1961-62 with George. Hopefully there's some better times around the corner, George.
Not far away, Steve. I mean, we're into the second division now. Dumped out. Well, I mean, it was coming. Anybody that's watched the other one had seen how our defence was operating. 109 goals last season. No wonder we ended up getting relegated. On the plus side, though, we're still scoring 89 going forward, but it wasn't enough to save us, so down we went. And, of course, we now have Charlie Mitten, who's already battling against Stan Seymour and his mates to keep him in his job. He's now got a real battle on his hands because every single thing that he wants to do, Seymour and his mates are dead against it. You know, it's hard for him, and one wonders what the bloke might have done if we'd given him a fair shake. We're 1961. We're still in the swinging 60s. Just to give you some information about where we are. Top of the pops was still Chubby Checker learning how to twist. Would you believe? And Elvis Presley singing "Surrender." Stand By Me by Ben King, and Runaway by Del Shannon was another one which was very, very popular in the day. So there was that was the music scene. And if you wanted to go to the cinema, the pictures as we called it in those days, West Side Story was the premier picture at the time, and Judgment in Nuremberg if you wanted a serious one. Breakfast at Tiffany's if you wanted a rom-com, as they call them now. That was great. Splendor in the Grass. Well, my memory is that lots of young men like me went to see Splendor in the Grass because the title conveyed all sorts of things that the picture didn't. So Splendor in the Grass wasn't quite what we expected. And then the Children's Hour was another good one of the time. So that's where we are in time. Charlie Mitten's starting to have a clear out. He's getting rid of lots of people. He'd already got rid of Bob Stoko and Jimmy Schooler, some of the old hands. And then, lo and behold, at the beginning of this season, he persuades Seymour to give Bobby Mitchell a free transfer and a testimonial as a means of getting rid of them. So Bobby Mitchell ends up going to Berwick Rangers as player manager, and he gets a testimonial. Just to people think about Bobby Mitchell, he's a left winger, nicknamed Bobby Dazzler, Twinkle Toes. They were the names he used to get. 412 games, 113 goals, and this is a left winger. I mean, incredible. That's the program for his testimonial, which we'll talk about at a later date. But you know, that's the kind of player he was. The kind of adulation he got from the crowd is not surprising. And this is what Bobby had to say. There's no doubt that the crowd at St James's Park absolutely loved Mitchell, with 40,000 attending his testimonial. And this is what he had to say for himself. It's a wonderful thing to emerge from the dressing rooms at St James's Park to the accompaniment and the acclamation of one's faithful supporters. Even after many years with United, I get a tingle with satisfaction and pride when I hear the Gallagher roar. So that's somebody who really loved his time here and deservedly sure. So, right, we'll start on the season now, Steve. Let's have the first program.
The first photographs we've got, as usual, are some team photographs.
Yes, right. That's the team of the year, with still playing in the Mitten shirts, of course. Lots of old hands and new hands. Dave Hollins is the goalkeeper. He became a real favourite and became an ever present. He really was a tremendous goalkeeper. And in the front row, there's some new faces. On the far right is Jimmy Fell, the bought from Leicester. And in the middle is Barry Thomas, our centre forward, who they bought from Scunthorpe after he tore us to pieces and became a firm favourite at Newcastle. The next one, Steve.
And the next one is this.
That's them training round the cinder track at St James's Park. Oh, how I remember those days. George Dalton in the far right, school friend of mine who managed to get a contract and get into the first team. Gordon Hughes next to him. Behind him, the big lad is Bill Thompson, the centre half. And behind him on the left, farthest left, that's Ken Hale, who played midfield and who again I knew quite well. But that's anybody who's been on any sort of signature at Newcastle will remember doing those rotations round the cinder track. And that's an action picture of Barry Thomas playing for United, and he was a character, but a well-loved character by the crowd during his day. And we're now starting the programmes, I think.
Yeah, now we've got the fixtures.
Right, yeah. This is part of a programme from a friendly with AFC Odense, I think, from Denmark. You can click on the next one. Yeah, that's it, yeah. It was a charity match. Mitten in his friendlies and his charity games. I mean, it's driven me crackers while we've been doing this. I mean, we've got a hard season last time. We've got a hard season in the second division, and still we're playing charity games. Odense and Newcastle, that's the two teams playing in that night. And they're playing in a charity match because there's a link between the RVI in Newcastle and a hospital in Odense. One of the two of the consultants work together, apparently. And so they had these charity games. There was another one shortly afterwards, I think, against, that's the Odense programme with pictures of Ken Hale and Len White. And that's Ivor Altchurch and the full squad printed in the programme. I sometimes think I wouldn't mind that in one of our programmes because people don't know the whole squad, and I think that was quite useful. Anyway, Odense and Aarhus played these two friendlies and made a lot of money for the RVI in doing so. Attendances weren't super great, about 12,000, which for a friendly at the beginning of the season wasn't too bad. And to have two friendlies so close together, one on a Wednesday and one on a Saturday, I don't know where he thought these people were coming from, but he still got 12,000, which isn't bad. It says a lot about our fans. The next one is Spurs,
now the next
I
one,
think. Yeah,
that's right. It's a photograph of the Spurs team, I think.
Paying homage to them because this was the year we got relegated. They won the double, League and Cup double, and that's the team that won the League and Cup double. Incredible. When they played the Charity Shield, of course, they didn't have any opponents, so they picked a Football League team to play them, and they played it at White Hart Lane. And the Newcastle had Len White in the Football League team, which was because of his outstanding goal scoring feats. And indeed, on that picture at the far right at the back is no other than Dave Mackay. Dave Mackay had a reputation for being hard. I actually think he was really dirty. He put a lot of people out of the game when he played. And he put Len White out of the game for me. Because after the game, we turned them over at White Hart Lane, where Len White was just unplayable. He scored a hat-trick. Just before the end, Mackay tackled White really badly. And Len White never recovered from that tackle. He played again, but he was never the same player. He was always a yard slower than he was. But I felt double champions and cup winners, you can't avoid that. You've got to mention that in 1961 because it was so important. And they were a good team. There's no doubt about that. Our next one will probably be our first game.
Yeah, is that Leyton Orient?
Leyton Orient, yes. Leyton Orient at home, and well, it was all new teams for us because we hadn't been in the second division for such a long time. So the interesting thing about doing this is that while we had Leyton Orient, our team was Dave Hollins, Dick Keith, Alf McMichael, the same full-back pairing, Duncan Neal, John McGrath, Jackie Bell, Gordon Hughes, Jimmy Harrower, John McGuigan, Ivor Alchurch, and Liam Toy. And we didn't know what to expect from Leyton Orient, but they had a very small squad. I think there may be a photograph of the Leyton Orient squad next, Steve, is there?
No, we haven't got that.
All right, okay. Or it may turn up in the second game. I mean, the only person in the Leyton Orient squad who had any major experience was an ex-professional from Chelsea called Dunmore, David Dunmore, who played a lot of years for Chelsea. And obviously on his way out went to Leyton Orient as another London club. But it was a 0-0 draw, a very poor game, to be perfectly honest. And, you know, it set the season off without a defeat, but that was all we could claim about it. It was a very poor game. I think the next game, maybe our next home game.
Yeah, another programme. Yeah, just go with it. And I think it's Walsall.
That was game number 2. And again, all new for us because we hadn't been there before. But Walsall were had a good reputation as a team that dug in and never give anything away. We won 1-0. Our team was almost virtually the same as the first team, except that instead of Jackie Bell at left midfield, defensive midfield, George Dalton, my old friend, came in, and at inside to the right wing was Charlie Woods, another old friend of mine. Otherwise, the team was the same, and they played a lot better against Walsall. Although we only managed to win 1-0, and the goal scorer was fairly predictable. It was Liam Toohey, who the left winger who we got from Ireland, who was playing out of his skin by then. So we move on, and we're heading.
Scunthorpe. Right.
Okay. Well, we'll stop. We'll stop there because there's a Preston away game slipped in before that one, and we went to Preston with high hopes, and the team was much the same as I've read out before. Hollins, Keith, McMichael, Neil, Willie Thompson, Bill Thompson comes in at centre half, George Dalton, Len White rather is back in the team, fit again, Charlie Woods, Ken Leake, Ivor Alchurch, and Liam Toohey. And they go to Preston and win 1-0, which was celebrated widely on Tyneside. And Charlie Woods was the goal scorer. Charlie Woods was the goal scorer, and that was very nice to see from people who knew Charlie. The next game we played was an away game at Walsall. It was the return game at Walsall, and we expected that we might get another away victory out of that, but we didn't. Typical Newcastle, when you expect them to do something, they do the exact opposite. And we lost 1-0 at Fellows Park, which interestingly attracted the biggest Walsall crowd they'd ever had to that time. 26,000 people. They'd never had that many people in the ground at Walsall before, but they came to see Newcastle in their numbers. However, they're rewarded for coming because Walsall beat were 1-0. And the goal was scored by a lad called Younger, who, guess what, used to play for Newcastle United when he was a teenager, just to add grist to the mill. And the next game we played was at home to Plymouth Argyle. I don't think I've put that programme up, Steve, because the programmes are all the same. It's a bit pointless. We've played Plymouth at home, and everybody thought, well, come on, let's get back on song. No, we didn't get back on song. We did the same old thing, wanted to win, and we lost 2-0. 29,000 at the game. and Plymouth scorers were Kyle and Carter. But playing for Plymouth were Alan Jackson and Brian Wright, both of who joined Plymouth just before the season started. They were two players that were cleared out by Mitten and went to Plymouth Argyle, but they did their job for Plymouth Argyle. Our team was much the same as I read before, with Hollands again in goal and ever present, and the rest much the same as well. We're now heading towards... all right, okay. Now I've got a friendly, would you believe?
No surprise there.
Against who? The Mackhams. What the hell do we want to play a friendly against the Mackhams for? Well, I'll tell you why. Money. That's the only thing I can think. The three club directors, Middlesbrough, Sunderland and Newcastle, got together at the beginning of the season and decided we would have a series of friendlies. And the one that won the friendlies in the, like a league system could declare themselves as Cock of the North. Have you ever? Well, that's 6 more games we've got to play. Never mind Cock of the North. Anyway, we played the Mackhams and we won 1-0 at home. Ken Leake scoring the goal with a crowd of 53,000. 53,000 for a non-entity of a friendly. I mean, it was amazing to get that many people to come for a friendly. But I think it just showed the appetite for Newcastle v Sunderland. Bearing in mind Sunderland had been down in the 2nd division a while then. Sunderland team was fairly predictable. The other thing I've discovered with this doing this one is the squads for the big, what we would call the big teams like Sunderland, are enormous. They've got 20, 30 odd players, where Walsall, Plymouth and so on, they're lucky to have double figures. It's amazing how they survived, but they did. Where Sunderland, they had Jim Montgomery, Stan Anderson, Len Hasher, Charlie Hurley, and in the defensive lineup, of course, was Seth Irwin, who I played in Thumberland schoolboys with and went to Burnley with. Martin Harvey became a big player for the team. And, of course, George Hurd, who caused a whole lot of animosity between Newcastle and Sunderland. George Hurd came down from 3rd Lanark. He'd signed, we thought, Seymour was telling everybody, and Mitten was telling everybody, we've signed George Hurd. Well, unbeknownst to us, the very night that we thought we signed him, the Sunderland chairman went up to 3rd Lanark and offered George Hurd more money. So George Hurd signed for Sunderland. Can you imagine the furore that caused? You'd hear the howls all the way to Roker Park. There's no doubt about that. But we're you know, they're the sort of things that used to happen and went on. So we get this friendly with Sunderland out of the way, and we get back onto the league programme, which is Huddersfield Town away, and we're fingers crossed. Let's hope we can get something out, but we didn't. We lost 2-1 to Huddersfield, and by now, of course, the Gallagher corner is starting to panic. That's several losses, and we're starting to look in the bottom half of the 2nd division, not the top half where we would be. We lost 2-1. Len White scored our goal, and a lad called Kerry and Massey scored their 2 goals. In the Huddersfield team, Ray Wood, who was the goalkeeper that everybody knew, and Ray Wilson, of course, was the left back who ended up in the '66 World Cup team, but he was a young man then. Jim Kerry, who scored the first goal against us, ended up playing for us. But by the end of the season, we'd bought him from Huddersfield and exchanged Len White the other way. The team for us that day away at Huddersfield was fairly predictable. Dave Hollands, Dick Keith, Alf McMichael. George Wright came in on the right side of midfield. George Heslip, another old friend of mine, playing centre-back. And George Dalton at left defensive midfield. And then Len White, Ivor Halchurch, John McGuigan, Ken Leake and Liam Toy. And as I say, lost 2-1. So the Gallagher got us getting a sweat on now because we're bumping around the wrong end of the second division. Never mind the first division. The next one, I think, is the next programme you've got is Scunthorpe, I think, Steve.
Yep.
Yes, Scunthorpe United at home on a Wednesday night, and it's the League Cup. And I think, well, are we going to get a run in the League Cup this time? And lo and behold, we do. We win 2-0 with Ken Hale and Ivor Alchurch scoring the 2 goals, and the crowd starting to look up a little bit because we've been pretty poor in the League Cup up to now, and we still got a 30,000 crown, which wasn't bad. 2-0, and are we going to go places? No. Interesting for fans. Ken Hodgson and Brian Godfrey, who were, again, are 2 players that Mitten got rid of, turned up on the Scunthorpe side and played against us. And played quite well, is my memory. Our side, predictable: Dave Hollins, Keith McMichael, Wright, Haslip Dalton, Len White, Alchurch, Ken Hale, Ken Leake, and Liam Toohey. So that was the same team that lost previous games, but are now looking a bit better. But this is the League Cup again. So we're now got a home game against Swansea. I don't know if there's a programme in for that, Steve. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. We drew with Swansea 2-2. Swansea were quite a good side at that time, and to get 2-2 was regarded as quite a good result. The Gallagher corner didn't think so, mind, I can tell you. Leake and Alchurch scored our goals, and Howard Williamson scored both the Swanseas, a Welsh international. The star man on the night was a Swansea midfielder called Reg Davis. Now, anybody that's watched this, they'll know that a couple of years before, Reg Davis was our star player, not their star player. He tore us to shreds, but we managed to survive a draw out of it. But again, the crowd's coming back, nearly 30,000 at the time, so we're not doing too badly in crowd-wise. So that's Swansea. Next match is a humdinger because it's an away game at Liverpool. No, it's a home game against Liverpool, sorry. Nobody's expecting much out of this because Liverpool are already starting to run away with the division. And their squad at that time was ginormous and was being, of course, run by Shankly. Shankly was rebuilding Liverpool at this time. And we played Liverpool and the crowd was 40-odd thousand for this one, 48,000 for this one. Ken Hale scored for us early on, but an own goal from George Hislop and a winner from Gordon Millen, one of their star players, midfield players, England player, made it 2-1. However, they gave a good account of themselves and it stayed 2-1. We didn't lose any more. So at least we gave a good account of ourselves against the team that was running away with the division. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the Newcastle side was virtually the same as the one I said before. But go to the Liverpool squad, Slater in goal, Jerry Byrne, Gordon Millen, Ron Yates is a name that people will remember, Ken Lewis, Roger Hunt, who played for England in the World Cup as well, Ian St. John, Jimmy Melia, who was at Liverpool a lot of years, and Alan Court, who I remember as a youth player, was in with Liverpool for a long time too. I've just looked at the Liverpool cards, 3, 9, 12, 30 odd players in that squad of Liverpool's, with names I've never mentioned: Morrissey, Aris Smith, Jeff Twentyman, Ronnie Moran, who became part of the backroom staff with Shankly. Goalkeepers were Tommy Lawrence and Jim Furnell, both who had long distinguished careers at Liverpool. And that's the difference in this division. A team like Liverpool with 30-odd squad, a team like Walsall, Leyton Orient, lucky if they've got double figures to pick from. So you wonder how they survived. So we now got an away game, I think, to Southampton. I don't know if I've got a Southampton programme.
I'm not sure what we've got.
Preston. No, you can put that one back again then, Steve. So we go away to Southampton, and we're hopeful that we might at least get a draw at Southampton because they're not playing particularly well. But sadly, no such luck. We lose 1-0 to Southampton. A very early goal, and we never got back in the match. Our team was Hollands, McKinney, McMichael, Duncan Neal back in the team, George Dalton, George Hezeb, George Dalton, Gordon Hughes now back out on the right wing, Ken Lee, Ken Hale, Ivor Alchurch, and Liam Toohey. But a game which we never really got into after the early goal. Southampton, another team with a fairly big squad, but I mentioned the squad because when I looked down at it, I thought, hello, there's names I know. For example, in the midfield, I had a lad called Ken Wimshurst. Now, Ken Wimshurst was at Newcastle for years. Ken Wimshurst has left Newcastle because he had a row with the previous manager, George Martin, and George Martin just got rid of him straight away. No back chatting George Martin. So Ken ended up on a free transfer to Wolves, and then he ended up at Southampton, where he had a nice long career with Southampton. Also in the Southampton squad was a young man on the right wing called Terry Payne, who played a lot of years for them and for England. Very distinguished career Terry Payne had. So we're now at Southampton. The next game's a home game against Luton Town, and they're not doing too well. So this is, because of the situation we're in, we're still floating around the middle and just below the middle of the division. Everybody thinks, in our parlance, this is a 6-pointer. We've got to get something out of this. And lo and behold, they don't let we're down this time. We beat Luton 4-1. Alchurch, Hughes, Hale and White score our goals, and McGuffey scored the consolation for Luton. Luton's squad was didn't have many big stars in, but they had a Scotchman called Jim Fleming, who was well known in 2 or 3 First Division teams, particularly in the south. I think he played for West Ham a bit. He played for I think he played for Brentford a bit, and he ended up at Luton. But their manager was one of their midfielders was a man called Gordon Turner, who eventually became manager of Luton Town. So we got a good home victory against Luton Town with 23,000 at the game. So the faithful are still coming. So we're now up to the second round of the League Cup, and we're drawn against Sheffield United rather, and everybody thinks, and it's away from home. We're going to struggle here. But we don't struggle. They go away and don't only give a good account of themselves, come back with a 2-2 draw. And the team was Hollands, McKinney, Colin Clish, another ex-junior player that I know well, Duncan Neal, Hislop, George Dalton, Hughes, Hale, McGuigan, Alchurch and Leake. And only 12,065 at Bramall Lane, which, you would have thought for a team like Sheffield United, they'd have got more than that. Anyway, 2-2. The only thing about the Sheffield squad, there was 2 former Newcastle players in that squad, but they didn't play that night. Len Hodgkinson and Lenny McPhee, but they never did much with Newcastle before they were shifted out. So we get a draw from the in the League Cup. So that means we're going to have a replay sometime soon. Next game is an away game at Liverpool, and unfortunately, the anticipated happens. We get beat, but we don't get slaughtered. We lose 2-0. with Hunt and Lewis scoring their goals, one in each half. And the crowd at Anfield, 53,000. And the Liverpool team was much the same as the one that played at St James's Park, except he brought Ron Yates in at centre-half. And otherwise, it was virtually the same. Oh, Dick White at right back instead of 20 men. And our team was predictable because by now we've got a settled squad. Hollins, McKinney, Matt Michael, Duncan Neal, George Hislop, George Dalton, Gordon Hughes, Ivor Altchurch, Len White, John McGuigan, and Liam Toohey. And as I say, a huge crowd at Anfield, which was to be expected and appreciated that they would want to come and see Newcastle United. So next one is a home game against Charlton Athletic on Saturday, the 7th of October. And having had a good showing at Liverpool, even though we lost 2-0, there was optimism in the crowd that we would at least get something out of this game. And we did. We beat Charlton 4-1, and McGuigan got 2. Sewell scored an own goal, and Altchurch scored, and then Howie scored their consolation goal. It was 2 goals in each half, and their consolation came towards the end. In the Charlton side, they had 2 characters: Stuart Leary, South African centre forward, and Sammy Lowry, who was an old timer who caused all sorts of trouble. The sort of forward who would rough people up. Sort of player that would cause an argument in the telephone box. I mean, that's the sort of bloke he was. And that's a reputation he had. And he was a bit like Marmite. Some people loved him, some people hated him, and that's the way he played. But he was in the squad, but it didn't make any difference. Charlton still lost 4-1. So now we're Monday the 9th of October, and guess what? We've got a friendly against an international 11. Now, this international 11 is, of course, Bobby Mitchell's testimonial game. And I'll put those down because I've got some other bits of paper here I want to pick up. Can you get Bobby Mitchell's programme up, Steve?
There you go, mate. I've actually got a copy of this.
Have you? Well, I suppose if I went in the loft, I might find it. Oh, Neil might have got rid of it. I don't know. Very jazzy program. I mean, it doesn't even look like a football program, but I hope Bobby Mitchell wouldn't mind me saying a very touched up photo of the man himself. That's not the Bobby Mitchell I remember. Anyway, he picks an international team to play Newcastle United for his testimonial. When I read the team out, you'll see some of the names and why he picked them. For example, in goal, Ronnie Simpson. Who did Mitten get rid of? Ronnie Simpson. Right back, McIntosh from Berwick Rangers. Left back was Harry Wilson, somebody else that Mitten got rid of. And the right midfield was Stan Anderson from Sunderland. And at centre-back from she was none other than Frank Brennan, the great friend of Stan Seymour's, Frank Brennan. And at left defensive midfield, Bob Stokoe, another great friend of Mitten, who shipped him off to Bury as player manager as part exchange for John McGrath. On the right wing, Smith from Berwick Rangers. And then David Hilly from Third Lanark, who was a friend of Bobby Mitchell's, whose family were friends of Bobby Mitchell. Now would have big importance later on because Dave Hilly becomes a Newcastle player during this season. And at centre forward, Jackie Milburn. Who else could be centre forward? And at inside left, as I call it, or inside midfield, George Eastham, another friend of Stan Seymour's. I mean, and Bobby Mitchell himself on the left wing. I mean, I would love to have been a wall in that international team dressing room to hear what they had to say about their times and what happened to them at Newcastle United, especially when Seymour was the manager. So that was the international team. It was a 3-2 win to the international team. Al Church and Tui scored for Newcastle. And guess what? Jackie Milburn scored 2 and Bob Stokoe scored the third one. So the international team won 3-2. Great night. Nearly 41,000 actually at the game for Bobby Mitchell. And well deserved. As I said at the start, 400 and odd games and nearly 130 goals. It's quite a thing for a left wing end. Certainly would be even these days, I think. So we move on, and our next game is a home game to Sheffield United. It's the replay of the League Cup, and everybody, certainly in the Gallagher corner, we're absolutely certain this is going to be some game, because we've got the chance to make progress and we're at home. The anticipation's high because the crowd's 35,000, which might not have happened on another day for a League Cup game. Well, typical Newcastle, of course. We've had all sorts of things going on. A 4-1 win against Charlton. We managed to get knocked out of the cup by Sheffield United 2-0 on this particular occasion. It was a disaster. When the second goal went in, you could have heard the groans down in the Haymarket, and people were saying it was 0-0 at half time. A lad called Hartle scored both Sheffield's goals, and by the time the 10-minute flag went down, people weren't even looking to go home. Most of them had already gone by the time the second goal went in. However, that was where we were, and so we were out of the League Cup. So we move on now to an away game against Bury, managed by our old friend Bob Stokoe, of course. And we go to Bury and think, well, come on, we've had a couple of good results. Let's have a go at Bury, see if we can get a result there. Not on your Nelly. Not on your... Yes, we did. We won 7-2, for God's sake. Nobody expected that. We thought we'd get a win. But 7-2 was beyond our dreams. And the scorers were Ken Hill, Leak 2, Leak 2, McGuigan, and a young man called Alan Suddick, another youth team player who's been pushed forward into the first team. And Alan scored 2 goals as well. So McGuigan scored 1. Bury got Jackson and Calder scored their consolations. Bury by now had Bob Stokoe as manager. They had Dave Hickson and Bill Holden in their forward line, 2 ex-First Division centre forwards of note. Hickson for Everton, Holden for Bolton, Burnley and Sunderland. But they didn't do anything that day. And their goalkeeper was a young man called Chris Harker. Now, Chris is ex-Newcastle goalkeeper, so he wouldn't enjoy picking 7 goals out of the back of his net against his old club, I don't think. But at least everybody's thinking, well, is this the turning point? Are we going places now? So we come back from 7-2 at Bury, and our next match is a friendly against Middlesbrough, for God's sake. And we play Middlesbrough in this friendly. That's it. That's the one. And there's another programme for the proper match as well somewhere, I think. Anyway, we play Middlesbrough in this friendly, and we managed to lose 3-2. Leak and Hale score for us, and Peacock 2 and Neil score for them. But again, the crowd for a friendly, and it's simply the derby issue thing, is still 35,000. A few days after we've been knocked out of the League Cup. That says a lot about the fan base, I've got to say. The Middlesbrough squad had some real old-timers in. Derek Stonehouse, Ken Thompson, Don Walker, Ian Gibson, Willie Hamilton, and the centre forward was Alan Peacock, who, of course, replaced none other than Brian Clough, who I'll talk about later. Is the next photo is about Cloughie, are they?
Yes.
Right. The Cloughie had left Middlesbrough. That's him just before this happened, and he'd gone to Sunderland. they'd played the equivalent friendly against Sunderland about 2 or 3 nights before, and Cloughie had scored all 3 goals. And after the match, Sunderland signed him, and there he is, banging in a goal against Sunderland actually, and they signed him immediately after the match, and he went for what at the time was a record fee for the second division. Is there another one of them? No, this is just to show how unusual. I've done a couple of things just to show how unusual Cloughie is, right? He's transferred from Ayson Park the night after the Sunderland game. And then the day after, he goes in to collect his gear, and he's introduced and shakes hands with the bloke that's taking his place, Peacock, who scored the goals against us. I mean, I can't imagine a situation in the current climate where 2 players who are swapping clubs like that would meet and greet so friendly. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. I don't think, anyway. The next one should be another Cloughie thing, I think. That's the Middlesbrough squad with Cloughie gone now, Peacock ensconced in the team. But it's Bob Dennison, the manager, was quite a famous manager. Next one, Steve. And that's the new stadium, the Riverside Stadium. Used to be Ayson Park, of course, but that's a whole different ball game to Ayson Park. Ayson Park was a typical old ramshackle place in Middlesbrough, where we used to sometimes go. And I think I've already said to you that one of my cousins used to come, and he used to say he was coming to match with us. He didn't. He spent his time in one of the massage parlours down the quayside at Teesside. But he used to meet you after the match and go home and tell everybody how good the match was. And the next one, I think, might be a copy of a letter, I think.
Yeah, the letters. You have to give us 2 seconds to get that open loaded, because it was quite difficult to get. But I've got it.
Right.
It's
right.
Yeah. What's the significance of the letter, George?
Well, this is another example of what Cloughie was like. This is when he's manager of Nottingham Forest. I mean, we're well away from 61 now, but yeah, it's in the 70s. But nonetheless, I just wanted people to see what a strange bloke or an unusual bloke Cloughie was. Somebody told Cloughie about a soldier who was a mad, passionate Nottingham Forest fan, who was serving in Northern Ireland. And he got burned when an incendiary device went off, and he was badly burned and sent back to hospital in London to recover. So they told Cloughie about this and how much he loved Nottingham Forest. So here's Cloughie's letter to this lad lying in his hospital bed. Dear Bill, this letter might come as a surprise to you, and it will be an even bigger surprise when I tell you to get up off your arse and bedside and get yourself fit, because we need you to let you for the rest of the games to be played at the City Ground this season. And I have a seat waiting for you for all those games whenever you can for the rest of the season, as soon as you are able to come. I know it's difficult for you, and I won't pretend to begin to understand how you feel, but you know we want you here just as soon as possible. We all hope and you get better quietly, and everyone here sends their love and best wishes. We are all thinking of you, looking forward to seeing you at one of Nottingham Forest matches as soon as you are well. That's not the sort of thing you expect from normal football managers, I don't think. And there he is, given in a Sunderland strip, given stick to a poor and suspecting goalkeeper. So that's me rant on Cloughie, but he's a character that needs, in my opinion, needs remembering, because he was exceptional in every way. So we have the friendly against Middlesbrough, and then immediately afterwards on the Saturday, that's a Monday night, and on the Saturday we have a home game against Brighton. Now there's a coincidence. Yeah. And that that's a home digger of a game. I can actually remember being at this one. From start to finish, Newcastle just wiped the floor with Brighton. 25,000 at the game. And Liam Toohey, Ken Hale scored. And then Ken Leake, the lad we bought from Leicester, scored a hat-trick. And our team was Hollins, Keith, McMichael, Duncan Neal, George Haslip, George Dalton, Alan Suddick, Ken Hale, Ken Leake, Ivor Allchurch and Liam Toohey. And a brilliant game. And as I said, just over 25,000 at the match. So we're now in the right half of the division, shall we say. We finished with Brighton. And guess what? On Wednesday, the 25th of October, we've got a friendly against the bloody Mackhams, would you believe? And we managed to beat them 2-1. Glenn White scores 2 goals and George Hurd scores their goal. And again, 48,000 at the match for a friendly. I mean, beggars belief, but it happened, and I think it only happened on Tyneside and perhaps on Weir side as well, to show what sort of football lunatics we are. Our next game is away game to Scunthorpe, and having had a few games we were playing well, and we played well against them at St James's. We thought, well, we might get something out of this. No such luck. Scunthorpe beat us 3-2, 14,000 in the ground. And our goals are scored by Allchurch and Suddick. And the team was predictable. Dave Hollins, Keith McMichael, Duncan Neal, George Haslip, George Dalton, Alan Suddick, Ken Hale and Ken Leake. So we're slipping down to the wrong half of the table. Our next game is a home game against Norwich. I don't think I put that programme in.
No.
But Norwich came, and they were playing well at the time. And we had a 0-0 draw. It wasn't a 0-0 draw that was boring, because I can remember being there. It was quite an end-to-end sort of game with shots whizzing past both sides. And in Norwich team, there were 2 lads, Jimmy Hill and Bill Punton, who Minton had sold to Norwich at the start of the season. And of course, people will remember that much later in the time, Ollie Burton our Ollie Burton would become a huge star at Norwich City as well. So 0-0 gets us out of starts us going in the right direction with 26,000 at the game, which wasn't regarded as too bad. The next the game is an away game at Rotherham. Oh, no, it's not. It's a friendly against Middlesbrough. It's a friendly against Middlesbrough. We lose this one 4-3. And McGuigan, Hughes and Wood get our goals. Peacock 2, Burbeck 1, and the own goal by our own goalkeeper, Stuart Mitchell, tops the scoring off 4-3 to Middlesbrough. However, the fans are sick. Crowd, 5,221. I think the fans have cottoned on to the fact they're being used as a cash cow, I think. But, yeah, the directors really need their heads examined for doing all of that, but never mind, they did. The next game was an away game at Rotherham, where we drew 0-0. And in the Rotherham side was a young teenager that just introduced into the team called Albert Bennett. He caused us all sorts of problems. And of course, some few years later, he was the star in the Newcastle team, wasn't he, Albert Bennett? And, you know, and I often wonder that whether or not his performance in this game stuck in the memory of the Newcastle scouts that brought him to Newcastle. Next week was a home game against Bristol Rovers, and everybody's hoping above hopes that we might actually do something with this. And lo and behold, they do. With a 24,000 crowd, we beat Bristol Rovers 5-2 with Jim Wilson. Len White scored a hat-trick. and Ivor Allchurch scored the other ones. I've just remembered that something happened some time back, and I forgot to mention it. After the Sheffield United League Cup debacle, 2-0 out, Seymour and his cohorts, because Alderman McKeag was out of the town on business, Seymour and his mates went down and sacked Minton on the spot after the match, told him to leave the ground, and tried to persuade Norman Smith to become manager. Norman wouldn't become manager, but when Bill McKeag came back, he agreed to go in as pro tem for Bill McKeag, and he made McKeag and Seymour shake hands and say, right, none of this affecting the team. We're sick of it. It's done enough damage. And so Norman Smith became our manager, pro tem anyway. I forgot to mention that. I should have, because it was quite important. 18th of October, if you want to look up the date. Anyway, we beat Bristol Rovers 5-2. Fantastic match. Really good game. Dave Hollands, Keith McMichael, Wright, McGrath Bell, Hughes, Hale, White, Allchurch, Wilson. Apart from the left winger, Jimmy Wilson, virtually the same team that we'd played all season. And the next game was away at Stoke City. And everybody thought, oh, surely we'll get something at Stoke City. No such luck. We lost 3-1. Ken Hale scored our goal from a penalty. But Stanley Matthews, Jimmy Moody, and Ali Thompson, who is an ex-Newcastle player, by the way, beat with 3-1. And also playing for Stoke that day was Dennis Violet, the ex-Manchester United player, who was a great player in his day. And so we're now getting twitchy again. We're down to below the middle of the division. And the next match is a home game against the Mackhams. Now, I don't know if I think he's put a Sunderland programme up there before.
Yeah, but it looks like an away programme.
Ah, yeah, sorry. Yeah, we'll get that. We'll come to that one later. Yeah. We 2-2 with the Mackhams with 54,000 at the game, which, you know, for two clubs that are middle of the division is quite tremendous. White and McGuigan scored. It was a great game. I remember the game very well. And Clough scored both their goals. Now, the one thing I remember about that game, about one of the Clough goals, he scored it at the Leeds' end. And as he turned to celebrate, somebody threw an apple at him. And the apple hit him on the shoulder. And Cloughie bent down, picked it up, took a big bite out of the apple, and then threw the gout back at the crowd and went off to celebrate. I mean, just typical Cloughie, you know, you couldn't beat him. But we drew 2-2, and as I say, a huge 54,000 crowd at St. James's for that one. We're now heading towards an away game at Leyton Orient, and I think there might be a programme for that one.
Got that one.
Good. Yeah. 6p. Bloody Southerners, even in the second division, are charging 6p. And we're still only charging 3. Never mind. We go to Leyton Orient thinking, well, let's see if we can get a result here. No such luck. We lose 2-0, 13,000 at the game, and Leyton Orient's two long-serving players, White and Elwood, score the 2 goals and pack us back to Tyneside with absolutely nothing to show for it. And we're now, as I say, we're not panicking, but we're still only hovering about the middle of this league, and we don't want to be there. So the next game is a home game against Preston North End. And we're all thinking, well, surely we can get something out of this. No such luck. 2-0 to Preston, with Biggs and Dawson scoring their goals. And the message is getting out now. Only 18,000 at that game. So people are now getting twitchy about where we are in this division. And So Preston North End. The next home game was against Middlesbrough. Was the real game, not a friendly, a real game. And again, we're hoping to do something in this one. Well, we did. We scored 3 goals, but the only trouble is they scored 4. So the beat were 4-3. And the Gallagher corner's really getting twitchy now. And by the time Peacock's final goal goes in, there's not many in the ground anyway. There was only 21,000 to start with. By the time we got the final whistle, I doubt if there was 10,000 in the ground. So now we've got a light relief of the FA Cup. And everybody thinks, oh, thank goodness for that. Well, at least we might have a cup run. Well, we do. And even though we're drawn against Peterborough United, a very ordinary 4th division side, in fact, who've just been elected into the league and taken Gateson's place, everybody thought, well, this is a cakewalk. Oh, yes, it was. For Peterborough, the beat were 1-0 before a 43,000 crowd, which didn't do anything for the blood pressure of anybody in the Gallagher corner, I can tell you. And the only person of note I can tell you about with Peterborough, none of the players were extra special. The manager was none other than Jimmy Hagan, the famous England star and Sheffield United star, who was a great servant of football. But Peterborough beat with 1-0, so dreams of the cup run suddenly disappearing. The next game is the away game at Peterborough, and I think I might have Plymouth. We might have a Plymouth programme there.
Yeah, well, you just talk about that and I'll try and find that one.
And we went with the hopes of getting something, and we did. We Alval Church put us in lead in the first half, and we did right up to the last 10 minutes when a lad called Maltby scored an equaliser for Plymouth Argyle. 18,000, that's it, 18,000 that game, which at that time was the biggest crowd that had at Home Park for a match, because it was Newcastle United. And I go to this theory that there's an affinity between us and Plymouth, which I find an interesting one. So we at least get a draw, and we're starting to come back again. The team's predictable. Dave Holland's still in goal, Bill McKinney, and a new left-back called Robert Ferguson, who comes from Shillbottle, George Wright, Bill Thompson at centre-half, George Dalton, Jimmy Wilson, Charlie Woods, John McGuigan, Ivor Alchurch, and Liam Toohey. So we as I say, we get a draw at Plymouth. We're hoping with the next home match, it's Huddersfield, that we might get a win out of this one. But no, it's another 1-1 draw. However, the crowd recovers to 33,000. Jim Wilson scored our goal, and a man called O'Grady scored Huddersfield's goal, and he was becoming quite a star with Leeds United later on. So we're climbing again instead of going in the wrong direction. But still, people aren't entirely convinced that we're playing as well as we should be. We're now going to an away game at Leeds United. I think there might be a programme there for Leeds United.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Leeds United starting to play well, and their prices are sneaking up to 4 pence for programmes. Leeds United are going to give us a good game. We know that, and it is a good game. All reports are that it was end-to-end stuff. But just at half-time, Liam Toohey, the Irish winger we've got, he scores what turned out to be the winning goal before an 18,000 crowd. So we're again, things that start us in the right direction. Looking at the Leeds squad, which is a huge squad compared to some of the others. Gary Sprake was a name people know. Jackie Charlton, Norman Hunter, Paul Madeley, and then in the midfield, Billy Bremner, who I have personal memories of, because when I played left back for the north of England against the south of Scotland, he was Scotland's outside right. and gave me a real run around on Hibs ground at Easter Road. I remember some of the words I said about the little ginger so-and-so when I got back to the dressing room, who wouldn't bear repeating on this channel. Bobby Collins, who was famous with Everton, of course. Albert Johansson, a South African winger who became famous. And, of course, Don Revie, who became more than famous. He almost became a god when he managed England. So we're now got a win at Leeds, and everybody's happy. And we're off to Swansea now the following Friday. And we think, well, we're not, Swansea are playing well, but so are we. Thomas and Wright score our goals. Reynolds 2, and Jones, who used to play for Spurs, scored Swansea's 3 goals before a 20,000 crowd at the Vetch Field. Good game. That's the programme, yeah. Good game, but sadly one that we ended up on the wrong side of. Interestingly, our side is the side we've played virtually all season. Dave Hollins, Bill McKinney, Bob Ferguson, George Wright, Willie Thompson, George Dalton, Alan Suddick, Charlie Woods, Barry Thomas, Ivor Allchurch, and Liam Toohey. But it isn't a thrashing, so we fingers crossed we're still hovering about the right bit of the division. So the next game is a home game against Southampton, and we beat Southampton 3-2, and the crowd almost forgiven. We're nearly 31,000 at the game. We beat Southampton 3-2. Thomas, Neal and Kerry. Kerry's the lad we bought from Huddersfield, as I mentioned earlier at the Huddersfield game that he scored against us then. And I'm convinced his performance on that day persuaded Newcastle to bring him to St James's Park. The only problem is he came that way. Len White went the other way. But by then, as I said, Len White had been injured by Mackay, and he wasn't the same Len White that we knew. So he went to Huddersfield. He wasn't playing against us that day, but Southampton, rather. O'Brien and Payne scored their goals. That's Terry Payne, the right winger who became very famous. Our side was identical to the one that played in the previous couple of games. No change at all in that. So we've got a settled side, and we're starting to make a difference. We're in the right half of the division now. The next Saturday, we've got an away game against Luton Town. I don't know if I got a Luton programme.
No, you didn't.
So. Right. And that's something else that's harder in the second division. That's finding programmes. Luton Town beat us 1-0, and the scorer was Gordon Turner, who eventually became the manager. We didn't play very well. Only 9,000 at the ground, which for Luton apparently wasn't a bad score, a bad crowd rather. The next Saturday we're away again to Charlton Athletic, and everybody's nerves are on edge going to London again so soon. But lo and behold, they put up a good performance and get a very acceptable draw. Charlton 1-1. Allchurch scored our goal, and annoyingly, right on the 90th minute, I mentioned this character Laurie that played for Charlton who would cause an argument in the phone box. Well, he caused an argument in our penalty area at the 90th minute and scored a blessed equaliser, much to the chagrin of the Gallagher following. That's the programme. Yeah, I mean it just beggars belief, and it would be him, of course. 17,000 at that game, which gather wasn't bad for Charlton. The next match is a home game against Bury. And everybody thinks, whoa, well, this is going to be a goal fest. We've already beat them at their place, we hammered them at their place. We're bound to get something against them here. No such luck. Bury beat with 2-1, with Thomas scoring our goal, with Turner and Bobby Thompson own goal just before half-time, giving Bury a 2-1 win before a 26,000 crowd, which is, to say is devastating after the progress we're making. Is just unbelievable. So we now go to the next away game, which is an away game at Middlesbrough. And we beat Middlesbrough 3-0. Middlesbrough beat us 3-0. Norwich scored 2 and Harris scored the third. Very, very, how can I say, dismal commentary the next time we meet people that talk about the football. 21,000 at Ayson Park. It wasn't pretty. Middlesbrough played us off the park. It's the only way to describe it, which was hard to take. We're now away to Brighton, and we're thinking, well, we've got something. We've got more than something at home. We beat them quite easily. So can we do it there? And lo and behold, they do. They didn't let us down. 4-0. Suddick, Thomas, Kerry, and Altchurch with 12,500 in the Brighton ground. And that 4-0 win was really picked us up off the bottom, because we're starting to head the wrong direction again. And now we're slipping back into the top bit of the league that we want to be in. And it's no surprise to say that we're expecting the Gallagher corner was relieved, to say the least. That's what was happening, because the 2-1 loss against Bury earlier on really knocked the stuffing out of everybody, as did the 3-0 defeat at Middlesbrough, of course. So now we've got an away win at Brighton behind us, and we're coming home, and we're at home to Scunthorpe, and we beat Scunthorpe 2-1 with McGuigan scoring an own goal for them, and Thomas and Day, and of course Thomas is an ex-Scunthorpe player, enjoyed that goal. I remember being at the match. He celebrated rather lavishly because it was his old team. The crowd's now back up to 38,000, which is quite something. And the team we put out is, as I say, predictable, because it's the lads that have been playing all through. Dave Holland's ever-present goalkeeper, Dick Keith, Alf McMichael, George Wright, Willie Thompson, Jackie Bell, Bill Day, Jim Kerry, Barry Thomas, Ivor Holchurch, and Jimmy Fell. It was relief, I think, sighs of relief when the winning goal went in the Gallagher corner for that day. The next game is an away game at Norwich. Now, I think there might be a programme for Norwich. Yes, there is. 0-0. Well, Norwich were playing well, and we got a 0-0 at St James as well. We got a 0-0 at Norwich as well, with 18,000 in the ground. Another 0-0, which by paper reports suggested it was quite a good game. But as far as we were concerned at the time, the important thing was that it kept us going in the right direction. Next game is Rotherham United at home, and we win 1-0 with the Barry Thomas scoring the only goal. 22,000 in the ground. So we're as I say, we're in the right half of the table now, and going in the right direction. A team identical to the one that played in the previous home game. The next game is Bristol Rovers away, and everybody's hoping that we might get something from that. I don't think there's a Bristol program. No, there's not a Bristol program. Thomas scored early on for us, and we thought, oh, great. But couldn't hold it. Jarman scored 2 for Bristol Rovers, and the 11,000 crowd went home happy, which is more than we could say. We didn't come home happy. The next match was a home match against Stoke City, and we wanted to do well. We needed to do well in this match to keep in the top half of the table, and we beat Stoke 2-0 with Thomas scoring both the goals. 22,000 in the crowd, which is just starting to come back, and people are starting to feel a bit more relaxed. And as you'd say from the next game, Derby County at home, we beat Derby 3-0. Thomas, Hale and Fell score the goals. and now the crowd's 35,000. It's amazing how a win suddenly turns the crowd on again. Playing for Derby County, though, is Bill Curry, our ex-centre forward, who Charlie Mitten had signed off to Derby at the start of the season. But as I say, a 33,000 crowd. Next game is an away game to Sunderland, and that might be the away programme that you showed earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's sadly a 3-0 loss, with Hurd scoring 2 and Willie McPhee scoring the third. 58,000 at the ground. And not often you see the inside of the programmes these days. However, it adds to it, but it doesn't soften the blow that we lost 3-0 to the Mackhams. The next match is an away match to Derby County, which comes very quick after the previous game against Derby County. Again, I must have something to do with Easter, the two games being so close. It was an away game, but one which we won 2-1. Thomas and Altchurch scored for us. Bauer scored for them, 11,000 in the crowd. And of those 11,000, yes, that's the programme, I know that all of the Chicken Road Academy were in that crowd, because my father's sister Nan lived in Derby, and if there was a match anywhere near Derby, he always used to get a bus up and go and see his sister Nan, and at the end of the day, she ended up feeding the whole bloody bus and getting a corner shop to provide them with beer and blackleg fags and anything else they could sell to the Geordies on the bus. So we got a 2-1 win, and that way we feel a lot happier. And we're now heading towards the last game of the season, which was against Leeds United at home. And I'm thinking, oh, well, surely we're going to get a result for this last game. 22,000, and Leeds beat with 3-0. Johansson, McAdams, and Keith Owen goals were the goals. We were never in the match, is the true story, Steve. But 22,000 were there, which I was one. However, the important thing at the end of all of that is that we ended up 11th in the league, and having sweated for most of the season that we're going to be in the bottom half of the league in the way our defence had been playing the year before. 11th was quite creditable to most people, except when you look at the league table. So we're 11th on 39. 39 takes you down to 18th. 11th to 18th are all on 39 points. Then 36, 36, 33 and 31, Bristol Rovers and Brighton Hove Albion. No wonder Brighton went down, because we hammered them twice and we weren't very good then. But we're 11th with 39 points. And all those teams are lowest, all on 39 points. The only difference is goal difference. And the winners of the league, of course, are Liverpool by country mile. 62 points, 100 goals for, 43 against. Leyton Orient was second, because they played their socks off all season with 54 points. And Sunderland just missed promotion by 1 point, 53 points. 53 points. And the goals, 85 goals Sunderland scored that season. And only 50 against. So they would regard that, and well, I know they regard it as a hard luck season. It certainly was. And some of the other teams at the top of the division, Scunthorpe, Plymouth, Huddersfield, and we're down at 11th, but at least we're still in the league and doing our business. I think there may be one or two other bits and pieces on there.
No, that's it.
That's it. Right. Okay. Is there another picture of the Youth Cup?
Oh, there might be. I might have missed that. Yeah, there is. There it is. Sorry, Joe.
Well, the importance of that is that's the year we won the Youth Cup with Bobby Moncur as our captain. We beat Wolves 2-1 to win that Youth Cup. And the team was Stan Craig, who I went to school with, David Craig, who became a great fullback, Colin Clish, who played fullback forward, Clive Chapman, who was transferred very early on, John Markey, who was transferred early on, Dave Turner, who went to Sunderland, as it happens, Matthew Gowland, who ended up at Middlesbrough, Alan Suddick, who's a name that everybody will know, George Watkin played for the first team for a few couple of seasons, and then went off to Leicester. And then inside left midfield, Bobby Moncur and captain of the youth team. And Les O'Neill was the left winger. So quite a star-studded lineup, but quite a number who actually made it. And I've looked at other Youth Cup teams, winning teams, and just looked at how many made it. And that number that we've got, you've got to find Chelsea with Jimmy Greaves and Frank Blunstone and all of that lot in the Chelsea team, Peter Shillett and all of those in the Chelsea team before you see the same number making it. So if we did nothing else, we made a good showing on the youth side that year. So that's 1961 in a nutshell, or not quite a nutshell, but it certainly wasn't easy. You could tell by the way we were up and down the whole season. And there were a number of times in the Gallagher corner where there were huge sigh of relief when goals went in and gave us a victory. But nonetheless, an entertaining season and a one which we won't forget. And I think what else was I going to talk about? Oh, the top goal scorer was Ivor Allchurch. Him and Jimmy Fell scored 11 goals each out of our goals. We scored 64 altogether. So there was wingers like Suddick and Ken Hale in midfield who were weighing in with 8s, 9s and 10s to get the figure up to 60 odd. But it was an entertaining season and a one which augured well for the future, is all I'd say. And Norman Smith turned out to be a good temporary manager. He kept the dressing room happy, which was what was needed. And he did manage to keep Seymour and McKeague away from each other's throats for a while anyway. So that's it. Look forward to 1962 and I think a much happier story.
Brilliant stuff from George as always. Thanks for your time research. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals. You can find them 304 Old Durham Road or telephone 478-2730. Email Darren directly at darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Also, thank you to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists, www.thegohd.com, and Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Away Day Clothing and thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk. Makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner. You can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the video. Click share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show is finished on YouTube. If you want to become a member, you can click join, or you can go to the website and become a cult member and go to nufcmatters.com. You can get a pen, a scarf, and a cup and a membership card and entry into the monthly draw. If you want to do that, pay a one-off fee. You can also use the QR code. If you've got a smartphone, it'll take you straight there. We do send you a free car sticker if you are a subscriber. Just email john@nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. Don't forget, we do support the food bank. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you need to go to make a virtual donation today. And that is it. George, look forward to catching up with you next time, mate.
And you, Stephen. Thanks, everybody. And my thanks to the sponsors as well. Thank you very much.
Take care, George.
Thank you, Steve. Bye for now.